Tonight, we drift under a calm sea, where the light above moves like slow silk. Somewhere in this gentle blue, a new life begins. A small orca calf, close to its mother, learning the shape of water. Before we settle in, a few quiet promises. Later, you'll hear how orca grandmothers help the whole family find food when fish are scarce in winter. Help that can be the difference for a baby making it through the season. You'll also learn which salmon orcas love most, like a favorite comfort food. Much later, we'll gently explain a puzzle about orcas and boat rudders in distant waters. And there's a newborn habit so unusual, it once made scientists wonder if baby orcas sleep at all. For now, just float and let these questions rest above you like stars. Welcome to Boring Animals for Sleep, soft storytelling and true facts. So your mind learns while your body rests. Before the calf learns its first lesson, a few quiet mysteries wait in the water. Why must a newborn keep moving almost without pause? How do families speak in voices only they fully understand? Which first taste of fish will it learn to love? And much later, who guides the young when winter turns lean? We won't answer yet. We'll just follow the moment the learning begins. The newborn orca stays pressed against its mother's side, matching her movement perfectly. It's called Echelon swimming, a graceful, invisible dance. By staying in that narrow slipstream, the calf saves energy and stays warm. It's the ocean's version of being wrapped in a blanket that moves. Each time the mother surfaces, the calf rises too, guided by touch rather than sight. They breathe together, a rhythm so steady that the young one begins to sync its heartbeat to hers. We sometimes forget that even breathing can be learned. Orcas know this from the first day. They don't breathe automatically like humans. Every breath is a choice. Even in sleep, half of their brain must stay awake to remember to surface. Later, we'll explore how they rest while never truly letting go of awareness. For now, it's all movement, gentle, constant movement. In the first weeks, orca calves almost never stop swimming. Scientists once wondered if that meant they never slept at all. We'll come back to that mystery later, when night in our story grows darker. For now, imagine the feeling of gliding endlessly forward, wrapped in the warmth of the pod, never falling behind. Around them, older females swim in slow circles, creating a living shield. The family's tight formation protects the calf from cold currents, from sharks, and from getting lost. Every voice matters here. Each orca has a unique set of clicks and whistles, a kind of signature sound. The calf learns its mother's tone first, memorizing it long before it can make its own. It's a language of touch and vibration, words carried by water instead of air. The ocean's pressure deepens, and with it, the sound changes. Low rumbles from faraway whales move through the body more than the ears. Some people compare it to listening to music through your bones. If you're listening now, let those low sounds melt into your own chest. Let them slow your pulse just a little. The calf begins to grow stronger. Within days, it learns to keep pace, to turn when the mother turns, and to rise when she rises. Each small success is rewarded with a nudge, a soft push from her fin. Touch means everything in this early life. It's both comfort and guidance. In human terms, it's like learning to walk while being held. Far below, schools of fish move as one glittering cloud. The calf doesn't yet know that one day it will help herd those fish with sound alone. That knowledge belongs to the adults for now. Still, the calf watches, listens, and absorbs. Orcas learn not through instruction, but through imitation, the quiet apprenticeship of the sea. We might call it instinct, but it's more than that. It's culture, passed down like a song, remembered through generations. Somewhere in this wide blue, another family calls out. The sounds echo through the water, distant but clear. Pods recognize their own kind by dialect, much as people recognize a familiar accent. We'll return to this when the calf learns to speak in its family's voice. For now, the sea is calm again. The pod moves slowly, letting the calf rest without stopping. It glides half awake, half dreaming, feeling the current slide over its skin. When the moonlight hits just right, the white patches on their bodies glow faintly beneath the surface, like drifting constellations. Some say it's how the sea remembers the stars above. If you're still awake, let your mind follow those glowing shapes. Imagine the warmth of family all around you, each movement guided by care. There's no rush, no chase, only the steady pulse of water and life continuing as it always has. Soon, we'll see how play becomes practice and how the first lessons turn into survival skills. For now, breathe slowly and drift with them under the silver ceiling of the sea. Next, sound becomes a tool. At first, the calf only listens. The adults release tight packets of clicks that travel ahead like tiny lanterns. Those clicks bounce off fish, rock, and kelp, then slide back as echoes. From the timing and texture of those echoes, an orca can tell size, distance, even the angle of a fin. We will come back to how the calf learns to shape those sounds with a soft forehead called the melon, and how a small shift there can change everything the echo reveals. Practice starts as play. An aunt glides past a strand of kelp and taps it lightly with her tail. Another adult sets a slow curve around a small school of fish, not to hunt, but to show the pattern. The calf copies the curve, clumsy at first, then smoother. Later, we will follow this curve when it tightens into a real tactic, the one that turns scattered fish into a neat, trembling ball. Milk still fuels most of the calf's days, rich and heavy. But now, the mother adds something new. She lets a small piece of fish drift from her mouth, just long enough for the calf to taste it. The calf mouths it and drops it, then tries again. This first taste will matter, because families pass down not only how to hunt, but what to prefer. We will leave the name of the favorite fish for later, when summer light returns and the coast fills with a certain run. Sound layers over sound, clicks for mapping, whistles for staying in touch. A sudden percussive slap of a tail on the surface that means pay attention. The calf learns that meaning depends on context. A call can be a greeting in one moment and a rally in the next. Families refine these patterns across years, polishing them the way people polish stories they tell again and again. Soon, we will listen more closely to dialects and to the surprising ways neighboring pods can be close, but not the same. On some afternoons, the adults slow down and stage a lesson. One circles the fish, another waits low and wide, a third passes behind the calf, guiding it into position with a nudge. The calf's task is simple. Hold a line, match a pace, and do not rush. Holding a line seems small, but it is the spine of the hunt to come. Later, when the first real attempt happens, we will watch that line turn into a wall that fish cannot slip through. Currents change with the tide, and the family chooses a calmer lane. Experience makes these choices look easy. The older females carry long maps in memory, places where fish gather on an incoming tide, narrow points where sound carries better. safe routes when weather thickens. We will return to those maps when the season turns lean and the distances grow. Night falls early on the water. The calf stays close, but now it tests independence, drifting half a body length away before returning to the mother's shoulder. Each brief gap is a rehearsal for trust. The calf learns it can leave and still hear the family's voice. When the gap closes, the mother brushes the calf with her pectoral fin. One touch, lesson complete. Echoes sketch a different world in the dark. Rocks appear as hard, clean returns. Kelp sounds softer, as if the water itself has a texture. Fish come and go like sparks. The calf tries a short burst of clicks on its own. The sound is thin, the echo faint, but it is a start. We will see how the adults thicken that sound later by changing head shape and click rate, turning thin lines into a detailed picture. At dawn, the sea is empty at the surface and crowded below. The family shifts into a travel pace that wastes little energy. Young males practice longer dives than the calf can manage, then swing back with a flourish, like older brothers showing off. They are not yet heavy with the tall dorsal fins they will grow, but the hint of that height is there. We will pause on those changes when we reach adolescence and the new rules it brings. The mother keeps the feeding pattern steady. Milk, then rest while moving, then a taste of fish. The calf takes more of the fish this time and holds it. The flavor is strong, the texture strange, but the lesson takes root. Soon, the calf will link the taste to the shape revealed by echoes, the way a human links a smell to a picture. The family turns toward a familiar coastline. On this route, voices sound different. The calls are the same words, but the accent shifts with the shape of the bottom and the depth of the shelf. A greeting rises ahead, distant but friendly. Some pods share brief meetings that look like ceremonies, lines that cross and recross, calls that answer and settle. We will save that visit for later, when the calf has more to say back. For now, one more exercise. The adults gather a loose fringe of fish and hold them in place with sound and position. The calf is asked to make the final pass through the middle without breaking the shape. It hesitates, then goes. Not perfect, but close. The fish wobble and tighten again. The adults let the moment stand. Neither success nor failure, just the next step. We will pick up from this pass when the first true strike arrives. Soon, the calf will learn that not every fish is equal, that one kind returns like a season and turns the sea into a corridor of comfort food. Soon, the family will rely on maps older than any single life. But not yet. For now, the lesson is simple and incomplete on purpose, a promise held just out ahead, like a beacon the calf can almost reach. First, the lesson turns real. A small school gathers ahead, flashing like coins in dim light. The adults set a slow circle, neither chasing nor striking. They speak in short clicks that sketch the edges and hold the fish in place. The calf is placed low, just off center, where a narrow lane opens and closes like a door. Wait here, the body language says. Not yet. One adult rises and slaps the surface with the tail. The sound is a signal, tighten. Another adult narrows the curve. The loose cloud of fish pulls into a rounder shape. Now the door opens. The calf slides through the middle, steady, not fast, and the circle does not break. A few fish burst clear and vanish. Most fold in tighter, and the wall holds. The adults do not strike. Not yet. They want the shape to be perfect. Only when the ball is dense enough to shimmer like a single thing does the lead female tip her head. One short rush, a closed mouth scoop, a peel away to reset. Then another adult, then another. The calf copies the motion with a small mouthful and almost swallows. Almost. The mother brushes its jaw with her fin, and the calf drops the piece, then takes it again more carefully. The lesson is not speed. The lesson is order. After, the family does something that looks like celebration, but softly. Two adults cross paths 3 times and exhale together at the surface. A young male rolls to show his belly white. The calf bumps the mother's side and settles into place. There is no loud victory here, only a release of attention, a quiet yes. Later, we will return to how sharing rules keep peace when food is rare. Travel comes next. The family turns along a route they know so well that each rise and dip seems pre-planned. The coast slides by in slow layers, kelp beds, a stony point, a long channel where echoes carry without breaking. Older females pick lanes that waste the least energy, balancing current against distance. We will come back to how those choices change when winter pushes prey into deeper water and the maps must stretch. On the second day of this new pattern, the calf tastes a stronger, oilier fish. It holds the flavor and looks to the adults for confirmation. A short, satisfied whistle answers. It is not the favorite yet, the one we will name later when summer returns, but it points in that direction. Families teach preference as carefully as technique. Near a headland, voices ahead grow louder. 2 related pods approach, and slow, they form loose lines that weave and mirror. Calls and squeaks overlap, rise and settle. From the surface, it might look like play. From below, it reads as a check-in. We are here. You are here. All is well. We will save the meaning of a few rare formal patterns for another time, when the calf can add its own voice to the exchange. The ocean shifts, wind stacks the waves, and the family compresses to a tighter shape. The calf tucks deeper into the mother's slipstream and holds there without drifting. Practice becomes instinct. When a gust throws white spray, the older females adjust the lane without a word. The calf learns that safety can be a position as much as a place. Toward evening, the sea calms. The adults run one more drill, a slow motion herd with long pauses built in. The pauses are the point. Holding formation without rushing is harder than it sounds. The calf wobbles once, then steadies. The wall holds. Later, when we name the salmon that draws the family like a holiday, these pauses will matter. The fish that returns in summer rewards patience over force. Finally, the mother offers a larger piece of fish and waits. The calf takes it, loses grip, takes it again, and keeps it. The adults do not praise or scold. They simply turn towards deeper water, as if the next lesson has already begun just out of view. Soon, we will meet the first shadows that test the pod's tight shape and the quiet strategies that make small bodies safe beside large ones. Soon, the calf will learn why the oldest females choose routes that look longer on a map and shorter in a hard sea. But not yet. For now, the water lies smooth ahead, and the family moves as one. Shadows arrive at the edge of the lesson. On a clear afternoon, a shape rises from deeper water and turns away just as quickly. The adults do not panic. They tighten. Two hold high and wide. One drops low, and the mother draws the calf into the safest lane. No rush, no splash, just a change of geometry that says, "We see you." The visitor keeps its distance and slips back into blue. Later, we will return to how tight formations, sudden tail slaps, and short bursts of bubbles send a message that small bodies are not alone. Confidence grows. The calf makes slightly longer dives and learns to turn broadside when a curious sea lion swims near. It discovers the value of height, a slow rise to the surface, head up, eyes just above the line. Spy hopping. From there, it can check the shape of shore, the set of waves, the angle of a drifting log. Soon, spy hops will become part of travel. Quick looks that stitch the surface world to the echo map below. Milk still anchors the day, but the tastes are changing. The mother offers small pieces more often, and the calf keeps most of them now. Weaning is not a switch. It is a long taper. Some families nurse for a year or more, some much longer, matched to travel pace and prey. Later, when we reach the season of long runs, we will see why patient weaning helps calves hold their place in moving water. Sound becomes finer. The calf learns to shift the melon, focusing clicks into a tighter beam. Short trains for nearby detail, longer trains for range. A slight tilt of the head can separate fish from kelp and kelp from rock. Adults model the timing. Click, pause, receive, decide. We will follow this timing into the first chase, where one extra pause means the difference between breaking the wall and sealing it. On calm evenings, play returns. Kelp fronds become ribbons to carry and trade. A young male lifts a pebble on his forehead, balances it, and lets it fall. The calf tries and snorts in surprise when the pebble slides. Play looks simple, but it builds grip, aim, and patience. The same skills needed when real prey moves. The family meets currents, shaped by a river's mouth. The water turns cooler and sweeter, and echoes thicken near the plume. Older females guide a diagonal that avoids fighting the flow. They know this crossing. Their bodies remember it. We will come back to the long memory of roots, and to the way knowledge survives even when elders are gone. Night brings a different kind of rest. Not stillness, but careful sharing. Each animal sleeps with half a brain at a time, trading watchfulness around the circle. The calf clings to the mother's slipstream and drifts in short, shallow cycles. It is not the deep sleep of land animals. It is a braid of vigilance and ease. Later, we will compare this pattern to the wakeful weeks of newborn life and close that early mystery. A change arrives with weather. Wind lines march across the surface, and the sea rises in bright bands. The pod shifts to a traveling order that wastes the least energy. Small bodies tucked, wide bodies cutting waves. Older females in positions that read water best. We will return to these positions when the coast grows crowded in summer, and choices at the surface can mean comfort or hunger. Another drill then. The adults build a small ball of fish and hold it with minimal sound. Silence is the test. The calf must read posture alone, angles, spacing, the lean of a dorsal that means stay. It hesitates once, then holds. A brief strike follows, and the war resets. No one calls this perfect, but the next attempt starts closer to it. The calf's teeth have grown enough to grip without scraping. The mother offers a longer strip of fish and releases sooner. This time the calf does not drop it. The reward is simple. The family keeps moving, and the calf keeps pace. Movement is praise here. Inclusion is the complement that matters. At last, a new signal from the adults. A low, excited pulse that carries farther than a whistle. It means the next stretch of sea holds something familiar. A path the pod has worn across years. A place where voices sound a little different because the bottom tilts and the shelf narrows. Soon, a food the family longs for will return like a season and rewrite the day. Soon, the maps in memory will lead straight to it, and the calf will learn a taste that older whales treat like a holiday. But not yet. For now, the line of travel glows ahead, steady and sure, and the family follows it into open water. The line of travel glows ahead. Morning brings a long, even swell, and a steady wind from the west. The family falls into a distance-eating pace that wastes little energy. Older females take the angles, reading color changes on the surface, steering around drag the way a river finds its channel. The calf holds the softest lane and watches for signals. A tilt of a fin, a turn with no splash, a brief pause that means, listen. A coast appears in slow layers. Kelp beds give way to pale sand, then to a dark shelf that drops fast. Echoes sharpen here. The bottom lifts sound instead of swallowing it, and clicks come back bright and useful. The adults spread wider than usual, but keep a loose weave that can snap tight in a breath. We will return to why this place matters in lean winters, and why the path to it is carried in memory like a map that never fades. A change in the water arrives before the eye can see it. Cooler, heavier, edged with a faint metallic note. The calf tests a small piece of fish and stares at the mother as if asking, "Is this the taste we have been waiting for?" "Not yet," the body language says. "Hold the line." Lessons stack quickly now. 2 adults run parallel lanes, setting invisible walls. Another works the far side, trading short bursts of sound for position. The circle forms quicker, tighter. Once, the calf rushes too soon and the wall breaks. There is no scold, only a reset and a second try that holds. We will come back to why patience, not speed, fills bellies when the big fish return. Currents begin to traffic with scattered scales. Birds settle low, waiting for commotion. The family slows without dropping formation. A low pulse moves down the line. Ready. The calf has trained for this pattern in pieces. Now the pieces join. Before any payoff, one more mystery opens. The lead female shifts the route inland, past what looks like the shortest way. It costs effort now, but saves more later. We will answer why after the first true strike, because this choice will matter most when winter tightens and food spreads thin. The wall rises, the ball densifies to a shimmer. On a signal almost too small to see, the adults take turns in a measured rhythm. One rush, peel away, reset. Then another. The calf threads the center and comes out with a mouthful it actually keeps. Not perfect, but clean. For a moment, the water fills with bright flecks. Birds drop like commas and lift again. The surface stills. Only then do the adults reveal the route's reason. The shortest path would have met rough water and a moving fog bank. This one bends behind a high spine of coast that breaks wind and gathers food. It is a sheltering lane that turns many small savings into a full day's strength. Later, when the sea turns cold and empty in patches, the group will make this same bend and survive on what collects here. The taste the calf has been waiting for finally arrives. The flesh is rich and oily, the fight strong for the size. It is the fish the family favors whenever the season allows. We could name it now and close one loop, but we will hold the word for a moment longer and open another. How do voices change when a favorite food is near? Do calls quicken or narrow? Do families lower their volume to keep the day secret? We will answer soon. As the run builds, hunts become shorter and cleaner. The calf begins to associate a specific echo pattern with this fish. A certain weight, a certain speed, a certain way of turning at the edge of a circle. Adults teach by proximity, not lecture. Stand here, angle there, now. Only after the calf has kept 3 solid mouthfuls does the name finally land. The big salmon, the one old whales talk about by season and river, the one that draws families to these lanes like a holiday, Chinook. The word carries a practical meaning here. Fat that travels, calories that last, time saved later when seas run thin. And having answered that, we open a fresh question. Who navigates to runs that shift year to year? When timing slips, whose memory corrects the map? We will return to that mind at the center of the family, the elder who steers summers and saves winters. Dusk gathers with a copper edge. The coast hushes and the swell evens out. The family drifts after the day's work without losing shape. The calf moves easily now, less a passenger and more a small worker in the line. Tomorrow will bring another bend behind the spine of coast, another check of color and temperature, another lesson in when to push and when to hold. Soon, the season will turn and rules will change. Soon, strength must be traded for caution and practice for restraint. But not yet. For now, the route ahead is set, the water is kind, and the family keeps its pace into the night. Night thins into grey, and the voices change. Calls shorten and drop in pitch, as if the pod is speaking closer to the water's skin. When a favorite food is near, families trim the excess from their speech. They keep contact without advertising. The calf hears the difference and leans toward it, learning that volume is a choice and that quiet can be a tactic. At the shelf's edge, the run thickens. Birds stitch low lines across the surface. The adults work smaller circles now, quick to set, quick to reset. A whisper of tail slaps marks the rhythm and then goes still again. The calf takes its place and waits for the tiny gesture that means go. We will return to how pods avoid interfering with neighbors and how a moment's patience prevents a day's lost hunting. Between hunts, the line reforms, and the elder female leads a bend no one else would choose. On the map, it looks wrong. In the water, it is exactly right. A channel where current gathers the run, a seam where echoes carry farther, a lee that saves the calf's energy. The choice seems small until a long day stacks on top of it. By evening, the family has eaten without spending itself thin. Later, when winter strips the coast of easy prey, these same bends become the difference between lean and empty. We will hold that edge for now. The calf tries a new role. Instead of threading the center, it holds the outside and mirrors the adult's speed. A bad angle would make a gap, and the fish would pour out. A good angle turns the circle into war with no seam. The calf misses once, then recovers. No call, no splash, just a second chance and a cleaner line. We will come back to the quiet rules that keep order without force. Hunts pause at midday. The pod travels in a wide checkmark that points across the swell and back toward shelter. On the way, the elder's route crosses a shallow bar that rattles the echoes. For a calf, this is disorienting. The solution is older than any single life. Move by landmarks at the surface for a few minutes. Kelp patch, low rock, the white spray on a distant point. Then drop back to clicks where the bottom smooths. The lesson is not technology, but blend. Use many senses and switch when one fails. Afternoon brings a surprise. The run dips earlier than last year. The adults do not argue. They change lanes. They move to a pocket where warm water from a small river folds into the sea. The food is thinner here, but more predictable, and predictability feeds calves. We will return to this trade. Fewer fish now, for a stronger body later, when we talk about how families shape growth on purpose. Toward evening, the voices lengthen. Greeting calls spool out like ropes and return tight again. Two related pods pass near and exchange a brief ceremony. Lines that angle and cross, exhalations in sync, then a slow unwind to distance. The calf watches the spacing and learns that closeness is not the same as mixing. Different families can be neighbors without becoming one group. Later, we will visit rivals and allies, and how history between pods lives on after the whales who made it have gone. Darkness gathers and the sea lays down its chop. The elder female shifts the travel order so that the calf sits between two steady bodies. There is no speech to explain this. The position is the explanation. On nights like this, the current twists unpredictably along the coast. The flanking adults are buffers and guides. The calf drifts once, feels the shoulder, and corrects. We will come back to this pattern when storms scale up, and when the first migration asks more of the body than it has ever given. With the moon's rise, a last hunt. Small, neat, almost quiet. The calf keeps its line through the middle and holds a mouthful without fumbling. After, the pod settles into a relaxed travel pace. The elder's route bends along the lee one last time, then points to deeper water. Only then does one loop close and another open. The calf has learned the name and taste of Chinook and the pattern that gathers it. But who keeps the calendar for moving runs? The memory for years when the river was late or the coast ran cold? The answer rests with the elder at the center. A grandmother who has seen scarce seasons and easy ones, and who reads small changes faster than younger whales can. We will tell her story soon, how older females lead when food thins, and how that leadership keeps calves alive through hard winters. After one more turn along the coast and one more lesson in quiet speech. By the time the sea turns steel blue, the grandmother's map is visible in the way the pod moves. She does not point or rush. She trims angles a breath earlier than anyone else and lets the group fall into the groove she sets. What looks like instinct is practiced memory. Years of lean summers and easy ones have carved a quiet path in her choices. Morning breaks with a flat light and a long, low swell. The grandmother leads across a slanting current that would push a younger whale into wasted effort. She skims the edge instead, using the flow as a conveyor. The calf rides the slack water beside its mother and learns that the smartest line is rarely a straight one. The day's first lesson is conservation. Shorter dives, fewer sprints, pauses that feel like patience, but are really timing. A head tilt to test temperature, a slight roll to sample taste. Small measures that add up across hours. Later, when winter hangs on and the coast thins, these saved pieces of energy will decide who arrives where food still gathers. The second lesson is reading absence. The grandmother steers towards a channel that has often been generous. Today, the echo field is thin. She holds the lane for 5 minutes, then leaves it without complaint. She does not chase the memory of last year. She trades it for a better guess now. We will come back to this discipline and to how ignoring yesterday's good place can feed a family faster than loyalty ever could. Midday brings fog. Sound flattens in the air and sharpens in the water. The grandmother slows the pod and resets the spacing. Wide enough to map, close enough to braid half sleeps together. The calf rides between flanking adults, learning that safety is not louder, it is clearer. A brief muffled slap points the line to a lee where the fog thins. The group passes through like ink pulled by a brush. When the fog lifts, birds are already working a seam. A fast circle forms, neat and small. The calf takes an outside roll and holds the wall without rushing. One adult sweeps, then another. Mouths open and close in turn. The grandmother does not take the first pass or the second. She watches angles. She spends less to gain more. We will return to this restraint when winter teaches the difference between eating and enduring. Late in the day, the grandmother tests a deep lane that younger whales usually avoid. Pressure builds. Echoes come back slow and certain. A few large fish rise from the dark and turn at the edge of sound. The pass is short and heavy, the gain efficient. The calf cannot follow the depth yet, but it learns the idea. Sometimes the easy road is emptier than the quiet one. Evening reorders the pod. Young males drift toward the back. The mother and calf take a middle slot. 2 steady adults flank the grandmother. This is not ceremony. It is logistics for a night the forecast will roughen. We will visit the shape of true storms later and how the pod becomes a moving breakwater. Only now do we answer the question we opened at the beginning. How can a grandmother help a calf survive a hard winter? not by feeding the baby herself, but by steering the family toward a food with fewer mistakes. Her memory shortens searches, her timing avoids empty lanes, and her restraint leaves strength in the tank. In lean years, those saved margins become survival. The calf will not remember each decision, but it will live inside their result. And before this loop closes fully, another opens. Why do some grandmothers lead longer than others? What happens to bodies that carry many seasons of choice? We will return to the shape of age, stiff backs, scarred fins, and the gift of a brain that stays sharp when the rest slows. We will also visit the moment when play no longer looks like play for the young. Adolescence, where new rules arrive with new sighs and voices deepen in the water. Night folds in with wind at its edges. The grandmother's lane tucks behind a stone spine, then slides into deeper water where swells stretch and soften. The pod keeps a low, even pace. The calf sleeps in narrow braids, half awake, half following. Ahead, a migration pulse will rise in weeks. Behind, the season of easy hunts is already thinning. Soon, routes will stretch and visits to the shelf will lengthen. Soon, the first courtship displays will be seen at a distance, and the rules at the surface will change. But not yet. For now, the map is held in living bodies, and the family moves inside it as if it were a remembered song. Tomorrow, we will turn toward the wide channels where adolescents test their depth and patience, and where the first hints of mating season brush past like distant thunder. We will keep to quiet speech and measured steps, and we will follow the grandmother's line until it bends toward the next lesson. Adolescence begins quietly, then arrives all at once. Bodies lengthen, voices deepen. The easy games stretch into tests that last minutes instead of seconds. A young male's dorsal fin sharpens and rises. Not tall yet, but taller than before. Females broaden through the middle, built for distance and steadiness. The calf we have followed is no longer a passenger. It takes its place as a small worker in the line. With new size come new rules at the surface. Passing close must be deliberate. Tail slaps that once meant play now mean make space. A bump that used to say follow now says hold your lane. Older whales correct without drama, just a reordering of positions that returns calm. We will return to how surface order prevents accidents when seas crowd with boats, and when migration narrows the choices. Underwater, practice sharpens into sparring. Adolescents match speed, turn inside each other's arcs, and hold parallel lines with only a body length between them. No one tries to win, they try to last. Endurance grows quietly this way. Later, when mating season pressurizes the water with energy, this stamina will soften conflict and turn shows into signals instead of collisions. Sound changes too. Calls lengthen, edges roughen, and response time shortens. Young whales begin to add flourishes to family patterns, small bends in pitch that still fit the dialect. Most experiments fade. A few stick and become part of how this group will sound 10 years from now. We will visit that slow drift in language when neighbors meet again and recognize each other by new details as well as old ones. Hunting drills scale up. What used to be a small, tidy circle becomes a fast, wide wheel. Adolescents take outside lanes and sprint to plug gaps, then swap to inside lanes and hold the wall steady. Mistakes are common and expected. The rule that matters most is the reset. Break, breathe, rebuild. The group's patience teaches more than a scold could. The sea grows busy with travelers. Distant boats hum along the lanes, and the pod avoids them by small adjustments rather than large moves. A bend behind a point here, a pause inside a kelp bed there. The lesson is that quiet changes make the days smoother than bold ones. We will return to this when we discuss the puzzling stories of Orcas and Rudders far away. For now, our family keeps to lanes that remove attention instead of inviting it. Food shifts with the month. Chinooks still appear, but shorter runs require broader menus. Adolescents learn to treat each prey type like a different sport, different speed, different turn, different strike. Some families pass down a specialty and guard it, others diversify. Our group leans on memory for salmon and keeps small skills alive for leaner times. Which mix wins depends on the year. We will return to trade-offs when winter compresses choice. Social lessons. Run alongside hunting. Adolescents take turns swimming beside elders, mirroring posture and tempo, learning unspoken rules that hold a pod together. Give way to age. Match the elder's pace before your own. Share the lee with smaller bodies before you take it yourself. None of this is lectured, it is demonstrated. Later, we will watch how these habits shape courtship, where showing control matters as much as showing strength. One afternoon, the adolescents are asked to run the wheel without help. The circle wobbles immediately. 2 outside lanes drift open and the fish spill. No one blows a loud call. They simply begin again. On the second try, the wheel holds for 30 heartbeats before breaking. On the third, an adult joins quietly for one pass, then leaves. By sunset, the young ones hold the shape long enough for a small, clean strike. It is not glory, it is foundation. Growth brings distance and return. Young males range a little farther on dives, then come back to the mother's side. Females begin to shadow older females on long swims, learning lines that will matter later. The family's center holds. At night, sleeping shifts become smoother and quieter, a sign that bodies can manage watchfulness without fuss. We will return to sleep when storms deepen and choices must be made in darkness, not light. Rain arrives with a cold front. The sea turns a grain darker and the surface hardens under the drops. The pod tightens and travels in a step-down pattern, high, mid, low, so that echoes layer without confusion. Adolescents are placed where their maps are strongest and swapped when the pattern frays. This too is part of adulthood, knowing where you help and where you hurt. Toward the end of the front, a clearing opens and light pours under the cloud deck. The pod stages one large hunt, with the adolescents holding the outer wall cleanly from start to finish. When it ends, they do not celebrate. They fall into a quiet travel line with the relief that follows proof. Something has clicked into place. And because one loop must open as another closes, a new signal enters the water. Distant, low and heavy with intent. The first males from another group pass several body lengths away, tall dorsals carving their own lane. There is space between families, and there will remain space. But the season is turning. Soon, displays will replace drills, and quiet rules will guide meetings that could go badly if handled wrong. Soon, adolescence will touch the edge of courtship, and new kinds of attention will arrive at the surface. But not yet. For now, the pod keeps its shape, the young hold their lanes, and the sea resets to an easy grey. Tomorrow, we step into the first careful dances of the mating season, measured, brief, and surrounded by supervision. The lessons learned this year will be tested at the edge of excitement, and our story will slow down to watch how calm is kept when the water starts to quicken. First dances of the mating season. Morning light lifts off the water and the soundscape tightens. Energy rises without speeding up. Adults spread a little wider, so there is room to signal without bumping. Supervision increases. Elders hold outside lanes and keep the line tidy, while younger whales test the rules. Displays begin as practice. A young male rolls to show his flanks, then straightens and glides past at a measured distance. Another answers with a higher arc and a longer breath at the surface. No one rushes. Distance is the rule, and control is the message. We will return to why restraint reads louder than strength during courtship. Voices change again. Calls lengthen and brighten, but they do not spike. Families keep volume lower near the surface and move detail into the water, where echoes carry meaning without announcing location. The point is to be understood by the right listeners, not heard by everyone. We will come back to how neighboring pods manage overlap without turning meetings into confusion. Bubbles appear in clean lines, not clouds. A male lifts and lays a narrow ribbon of bubbles, then threads it without touching. The path is a promise. I can move with precision. A female mirrors the turn and remains just outside of reach. Elders watch from the edges and adjust the group's shape with small body angles. If a display grows messy, the formation tightens and the signal ends. Quiet solves more than warnings here. Below the surface, speed tests stay short. Two males sprint side by side for a few moments, then break off before the wake becomes rough. The goal is form, not contact. A scuffed flank wastes calories that will be needed when food spreads thin. We will return to the economics of effort when winter arrives and decisions cost more. Courtship does not erase hunting. The pod still pauses to feed, but drills shorten and resets come quicker. Younger whales hold outside lanes while displays continue inside the circle. Control is measured in attention. Can you perform and still hold the wall? Those who can earn longer chances, those who cannot are nudged back to the edges to practice. At midday, a formal greeting settles the water before two pods pass close. Lines weave and recross. Breaths sink for 3 exchanges. Then distance opens again. Families do not mix permanently, but they do share space with care. Several brief displays follow, supervised and contained. The young male we have watched draws a neat arc, then adds a glide that cuts his wake flat. The move is small and the effect is clean. Later, we will see why tidy water matters when elders judge who is ready for longer rolls. By late afternoon, the wind builds and etiquette matters more. Rougher surface means less room for signals. The group shifts down coast into a lee and resumes at lower speed. A female holds a station beside the young male, watching for steadiness rather than flash. He keeps his lane, shapes 2 bubble ribbons, and yields position when asked. The lesson is that attention obeys order. Evening brings a short, careful chase after a compact school of fish. Displays pause. The wheel forms. The wall holds. The young male threads the center without ruffling the water and exits on line. A clean pass earns a longer window for one more display at dusk, and he takes it. A slow roll, a shallow tail lift, and a quiet return to formation. Nothing is announced. The formation itself is the approval. Night thins the surface traffic and the pod slides into travel mode. Courtship quiets, but it does not end. Signals move lower in the water, closer to where echoes live. The elder female angles the route along a worn lane that saves energy and avoids crossing another family's path. We will come back to how maps keep courtship from colliding with feeding and why the same lanes will matter when calves arrive and the season demands patience. Before we leave this day, one more loop opens. Courtship brings choices, and choices shape families. How do pods avoid pairing too closely with relatives? How do males balance displays with the duty to return food to the group? We will answer when the season deepens. Brief pairings, long memories, and rules that keep kinship wide without tearing the pod's center. For now, the water darkens to a soft slate and the line steadies. Tomorrow, displays will mix with longer hunts and decisions will start to hinge on weather. Soon, stories about rudders in distant seas will ask for context, and we will give it gently, but not yet. Tonight, the ocean holds its signals low, and the family drifts forward with room to breathe and room to choose. Season deepens. Pairings and kinship rules. Morning returns with a low ceiling and a long, slow swell. Displays resume, but they are shorter and closer to the water. The point now is clarity, not flourish. Elders keep the lanes clean and give space for choices, then narrow the formation when attention wanders. Pairings are brief and careful. A male and female pace each other at a distance. Match turns, then separate. Minutes later, they try again. Or not. No claim, no chase. Kinship rules keep bloodlines wide and tempers low. Families use memory as a guardrail. Who met whom last season? Which branches are safe? Which are close? We will return to how these memories live, longer than any single whale, and why that matters when the ocean asks for patience. Neighbor etiquette grows important. 2 pods travel in parallel, always with a body of water between them. Calls stay distinct. Displays never cross lanes. If the spacing narrows, elders angle the routes apart without a word. The lesson is that romance obeys navigation and that order keeps everyone fed. Hunting interleaves with courtship. When fish compress, displays pause instantly. The wheel forms, the wall holds, and each whale returns to roll. After the strike, the formation reopens and signaling resumes. The message is quiet but strong. Attention is a resource. Spend it where it counts and reclaim it when the day requires. Rain arrives, smoothing the surface. Bubbles lie flat and wake marks spread wider. Courtship shifts deeper where echoes stay clean. Pairs circle at a measured distance, then stack briefly, belly to belly for a moment, and slide apart without hurry. Elders supervise from the edges, ready to absorb any sudden move into the wider line. We will come back to how rare contact remains and why efficiency beats drama in the sea. Kin checks occur like roll call. Aunts and cousins pass near, exchange a soft call, and fall back into place. Young males range, return food, then offer a display only if lanes are clear. The rule is simple: contribution first, show second. It is not a law spoken aloud. It is a habit proven over seasons when food ran thin and only discipline kept the circle whole. By midday, the weather opens just enough for a meeting. Two related pods hold a calm crossing. Greetings spool out in a pattern that elders could name, then compress to distance again. Our young male shapes a narrow ribbon of bubbles and holds it steady, while a female from the other family mirrors just outside the line. No one rushes the moment. When the ribbon dissolves, both slip back to their lanes, and the day moves on. In the afternoon, the sea turns busy. A pair of boats hum along a ridge far off. The pod shifts behind a point and keeps signals low. Stories of Rudders belong to distant waters and different histories. Here, the tactic is to remove attention rather than attract it. We will give those stories context later, when our pod has crossed its own season and the topic can be handled gently. Evening brings one steady hunt. Adolescents hold the outer wall. The adults take measured passes. The young male threads the center with no extra splash. Food spreads slower now, and the pod eats without waste. Afterward, displays return, but they are smaller, more precise, as if the day itself has trained the choices. Only then does a new loop open. How do short pairings become calves months from now? How do families adapt when a new voice joins the dialect? We will answer when the year turns and pregnancies carry through travel and weather, and when uncles, aunts, and grandmothers share the work of keeping small bodies safe. For now, the sea darkens to pewter and the line stretches for travel. Signals sink lower, closer to the echo map. Tomorrow will ask for distance, and distance asks for order. Soon, storms will test sleep that must happen while moving, and maps will lengthen into night. But not yet. Tonight, choices stay small and careful, and the family holds its calm at the edge of change. The days lengthen into distance, and weather begins to test the line. Wind rises early and turns the sea in long, marching bands. The pod adjusts without fuss. Older females take the windward side and cut the first edge of the swell. Younger whales ride the smoother lane inside. Sleep must happen while moving now. It comes in narrow braids, one half of the brain resting while the other watches, and the order of bodies helps the resting half trust what it cannot see. travel has its own drills. Positions swap on a quiet signal, so no one holds the hardest lane for long. A touch on the shoulder means take the wind. A shallow dive under a belly means return to shelter. The lesson is rotation, not heroics. By afternoon, clouds thicken and rain makes a high hiss across the surface. Clicks move lower and tighter so the group can read the bottom beneath surface noise. The calf, nearly grown, keeps a map that is part echo and part root memory. When the bottom turns from sand to broken stone, cadence shifts, slower pulses, longer waits for return. A squall steps across the lane and the sea lifts in sharp angles. The formation tightens to a traveling triangle, with the grandmother near the point and two steady bodies flanking the young. Speed drops a fraction to keep the wake from tearing. If a wave stacks higher than the rest, the line bends and straightens. We will revisit this triangle when the first true storm asks for hours of patience. Dark gathers quicker than the clock says. Landmarks vanish and the map moves almost entirely into sound. Rocks return as square echoes, kelp as soft layers, deep water as a long silence. The young practice staying inside the grandmother's sound shadow, trusting her timing to make the next turn obvious. Sleep passes in turns. A body slides half a length back, eyes close, then open. Another takes the windward lane and trades it away after a quiet nudge. What needs saying is carried in spacing and angle. Near midnight, the hinted storm becomes real. Rain drills the surface and the swell stacks tight. For an hour, there are no displays, only travel. The pod becomes a moving breakwater. The grandmother's path threads behind points no one can see, yet the water flattens each time she turns. The young male counts the seconds between crests, learning that rhythm is a kind of vision when sight fails. Under the worst of it, a low call travels down the line, and each whale breathes in a staggered pattern so spray will not blind them all at once. Air in, air out, offset by a few heartbeats. It is not a chant, it is logistics. By dawn, the squall spends itself. The sea loosens and the pod lengthens into a travel shape again. Sleep deepens for minutes at a time, then lifts for checks. The young earn longer rests. The elders take the angles. Distance has a cost, and the day asks for food. The first hunt after a storm is simple by design. A small circle, a measured wall, a brief pass, enough to feed without draining the line. The young male threads the center and exits clean, then yields the tight lane to a cousin. Share the load before anyone shows fatigue. Midday opens with pale sun and low wind. Boats appear far off, humming along their charts. The pod stays inside a seam behind a point and lets the traffic pass. Stories about rudders in distant seas can wait. Here, the tactic is the same. Remove attention rather than earn it. Afternoon draws a straight line across open water. Here, the bottom drops and the echo map thins to near silence. The group relies on interval and habit. Breathe, glide, soft clicks, breathe. If a whale drifts wider than the agreed lane, a body slides across and narrows the gap by simply being there. The line recenters without a word. Evening brings a red edge to the clouds and a long shelf ahead. The grandmother takes a last temperature sample with a slow turn of her head. cool enough to collect food, shallow enough to map quickly. A short hunt feeds the pod and leaves time for rest that is more than a braid. The map of the day is stored as another route in memory. Before night closes, one more question. The season will soon lean hard, and choices will trade strength for safety. How does a pod decide when to skip a hunt to keep its map intact? Who calls the long detour that costs today but saves tomorrow? We will answer when winter lays its hand on the coast and leadership turns from speed to endurance. For now, the storm is behind them, the lanes are known again, and the water lures to an easy grey. The family keeps its pace, sleeps in turns, and holds the quiet geometry that makes distance feel simple. Tomorrow, weather will ask new questions, and the answers will arrive in small signals that keep the map alive. The season leans, and endurance replaces speed. Morning light is thinner, the run's less certain. Older females set a pace that looks slow, but covers distance without waste. Young whales feel the change as a rule. Push briefly, then hold. Every burst must buy time later. Maps stretch. The pod revisits lanes that fed them in late years and skips places that paid out early ones. Memory becomes a set of if-then choices. If the river plume carries cold farther offshore, bend early. If the shelf is warmer than expected, trade the fast path for the quiet one. We will return to how wrong guesses are corrected quickly and why speed is no longer the answer. Hunts take longer to set. Small circles fail more often, and the wall must be rebuilt twice before it holds. Patience grows practical edges here. Adults count beats between tail slaps to keep rhythm. Adolescents match the count instead of the mood. The young male we have followed no longer aims to impress. He aims to be exact. We will come back to how exactness, not flair, carries families through lean weeks. Meals shift to many small gains. A mouthful here, a pass there, a resettled ball, and another small pass. Between tries, the line opens just enough for recovery and closes again to work. No one burns a sprint to steal the last fish from the circle. The rule is, leave the shape intact for the next pass. Later, when the season loosens, the pod can afford drama again. Now, drama is dead. Travel windows narrow around weather. The grandmother reads a dark seam on the horizon and tilts the route under a point that dampens chop. It looks longer on the map and shorter in the body. A younger leader might run the direct line and arrive tired. She arrives ready. We will soon answer the question of how leadership shifts with age and what happens when scars carry more years than the smooth water does. Rest is measured in threads, half sleeps lengthened by minutes, then shortened for checks. The order of bodies matters more than ever. Heavy, steady whales on the edges, smaller ones nested inside. The young male is sometimes placed on the windward edge for practice, but only when the sea is honest about its mood. When it turns tricky, an aunt takes his lane and he moves inboard without pride lost. We will return to how dignity survives inside discipline. One afternoon brings a choice that tightens the story. The pod reaches a crossroads where a short lane might hold food but crosses busy water, and a long lane promises calm with uncertain prey. Elders pick the long lane. For hours, the surface looks empty. Then echo returns thicken. Small fish, then larger, then the right weight and speed. The wheel forms, the wall holds, the day pays out slowly and fully. The lesson on that time is a currency and the grandmother spends it better than anyone. A storm front runs late, and the pod must travel through dusk. Here, the breathing order matters again. Air in, air out, staggered by a heartbeat. So spray blinds no one twice. The young male counts quietly and learns to adjust the offset when the swell period tightens. We will use this same order when the route crosses a narrow bar with breaking tide. By now, the young ones have grown into roles that can be trusted. They plug gaps without cue and yield lanes without sulk. The grandmother still takes the angles, but the middle holds itself. This is how a family scales its strength, not with one hero, but with many correct seconds. Night settles, and cold pushes fish deeper. Hunts move lower and passes grow heavier. The pod follows down only as far as the smallest bodies can manage, then resets and tries another lane. What they do not win at depth, they regain in timing nearer the surface. We will return to this ceiling. How limits are rules that keep families whole. Close to midnight, a final question for this season opens. When food thins further, which memories matter most? The river that used to run strong, the shelf that sometimes collects, or the seam that almost always pays enough? Who chooses among goods that are all smaller than before? Soon we will answer with a story about an old scar, a familiar bend, and a winter saved by restraint. But not yet. For now, the sea is spare but honest, the lane is steady, and the family moves with the patience that makes scarcity bearable. The old scar appears first, then the bend that saves the winter. At midday, the sea lies strangely flat inside a long grey fold. The grandmother slows before anyone else and turns toward a headland that looks like nothing from the surface. Only when the light shifts do we see the pale notch on her flank, a thickened seam near the base of her fin. Years ago, turning this same corner, she took the brunt of a wave that broke sideways. That scar is a map stitched into skin. It remembers what the water does when wind and tide pull in opposite directions. Younger whales would cut the corner to save minutes. She lengthens the path and saves strength. The route slips behind the headland, under a band where fish collect when the shelf cools unevenly. It is the kind of place charts rarely mark, a narrow seam that pays quietly. The wheel forms without fuss. Passes are unhurried, but sure. By dusk, stomachs are full without a single sprint. This is the answer to the question we opened months ago, when winter was only a rumor. How does a grandmother help a calf survive a hard season? Not with louder calls or longer dives, but with fewer mistakes, better timing, and lanes that turn scarcity into enough. The saved seconds and saved breaths add up, where another path would have cost the young their margin. This bend gives it back. The pod rests in a lee, with the wind still combing the outside water. Breaths rise in staggered order. The young male holds a steady slot, like a habit he no longer notices. Discipline has become comfort. Rules have become warmth. We will return to that comfort soon, when it is tested by a night that tightens suddenly and then lets go. As weeks turn, bodies tell their own seasons. Young males add height to their dorsal fins and range farther, then return. Females settle into lines that balance strength with steadiness. The grandmother's back grows stiffer, her turns are smaller at the surface, but her choices underwater are faster than anyone's. Age does not erase skill, it edits where skill is spent. There is a lesson here about leadership and limits. Some days, the grandmother holds the outside lane and cuts the chop herself. Other days, she centers the formation and steers with timing instead of muscle. Younger adults slide into the heavy positions and learn that strength, guided by a better map, feels lighter than strength spent guessing. Order shifts without speeches. The pod adapts around the body that carries the longest memory. Hunting changes in tone rather than shape. Small balls of fish hold longer when the wheel is set cleanly the first time. The young male takes an outside lane, misses once, resets and holds. No one scolds. A cousin threads the center and exits without splash. The work looks plain from the surface, and that is the point. Plain work feeds winters. On a clear morning, the pod passes a familiar rock where a kelp streamer flags the direction of the flow. The grandmother turns her head and samples the temperature, then pauses just long enough to let the group read the same sign. It is a tiny delay, and the effect is large. When they round the point, the water on the lee side is 3 degrees cooler and the right kind of heavy. The first pass returns fat fish that fight like small anchors. Later, when we talk about aging, we will return to this habit of passing on cues in motion, the way seeing is taught without stopping. By late season, courtship energy has quieted and travel owns the calendar. Pairs that might have formed drift back into wider lanes. Displays shrink to efficient glides. The focus tilts toward endurance. Keep the map, keep the margin, keep the pod centered tight enough for watchfulness and loose enough for rest. We will open a new thread soon about bodies that change after many seasons, why some females stop bearing calves, and how that change sharpens the mind's work. Night brings the test we were promised. Wind shifts 30 degrees and stacks short, steep waves against an outgoing tide. For an hour, the line threatens to fray, then holds. Breaths stagger, lanes swap, the triangle collapses and reforms twice. When the wind veers again, the sea relaxes as if a hand unclenched. The grandmother makes one last bend behind a small point, and the water goes from rough to reasonable in 3 breaths. There is no cheer, only the soft sound of a pod that knows what it has just kept. Morning returns with a clean horizon. The young sleep in longer braids. The grandmother swims mid-line, where timing matters more than reach. We will carry one question from here. What becomes of leaders when bearing calves is past? And how does a life continue to feed the family without adding new bodies? Soon, we will answer with quiet ages. Menopause, memory kept on behalf of others, and the long work of guidance. But not yet. For now, the scar passes under calm water, the headland falls behind, and winter loosens by a small, important degree. Years lengthen, and bodies shift from making calves to making maps. Some females stop bearing young long before their strength is gone. They do not retire, they redirect. Milk gives way to memory, speed to timing, muscle to judgment. The family's center moves around them the way a school forms around a rock in a steady current. Morning opens with a calm sea and a wide shelf. The elder female keeps to midline, where decisions are made. She does not take the first pass at the fishbowl. She watches the wall's edges. If a seam forms, she closes it with a small angle and a short run. No drama, no splash. Younger adults make the heavy passes and return to position without being told. We will return to how this choreography keeps calories moving toward calves even when the ocean asks for care. When food thins, her role thickens. She chooses lanes that save energy but still cross chances to feed. She knows which river plumes carry the right weight of cold, which points make lee on an outgoing tide, which seams collect stray fish after storms. Her calls are simple and rare. A few notes place the group, and the group fills in the rest. The young male we have followed hears those notes and knows where to be before he sees the reason. At midday, light turns hard and the bottom goes ragged. The elder turns the circle once, sampling temperature and taste, then settles the pod into a pattern that looks slow and is not. The wheel sets tight the first time. The passes are measured and enough. This is the season when restraint is skill. We will answer why some females gain this role, while others do not, when we look at lineages and the luck of long lives. Afternoons bring apprenticeships that are easy to miss. A niece shadows the elder for a quarter mile, mirroring head tilts and path choices. A cousin takes the windward lane, fails, and is replaced without scold. The lesson is that the map belongs to the pod, not to the body that holds it best. Knowledge is passed in motion, not stored in a single whale. Evenings grow practical. Displays are rare and short. The elder checks spacing more than spectacle and keeps a wide pocket around calves. If a young male threads the center too fast, the formation tightens and the message is clear: elegance over noise. We will come back to why this preference builds survival later, when storms stack and night hunts ask for perfect lines. Some days, the elder rests from the hardest water. Her back is stiff, old scars pull at certain angles. Another female takes the edge while she steers by timing from within. It is not a demotion, it is a relay. Strength and memory trade places, so the pod can travel farther than either could alone. Late in the season, the family crosses a place where two currents meet and make confusion. Boats hum far off, birds drift without aim. The elder chooses a third line, neither left nor right, threading a calm seam between noise and drift. The day pays out in small, dependable hunts. No one will remember a single pass, but everyone will remember not being hungry. We will return to this seam when the elder is gone, and the pod must find it by echo alone. As years stack, the elder's voice stays steady even as her body slows. She lingers a breath longer at the surface. She dives a little shallower than before. Yet decisions come faster. A small tilt at the point of the formation, and the group saves half an hour. A turn 2 body lengths sooner, and the hunt holds the first time. Leadership becomes lighter, not louder. Before we close this thread, another opens. What happens when the elder does not surface on a given timing? How does a family absorb the gap where a voice used to be? We will answer with patience and without rush. Near the end of our journey, when the calf we met has grown through seasons and knows the map well enough to keep it. And before that farewell, we will visit meanings carried by people who share these coasts, why some call the Orca a guardian, a traveler between worlds, a bringer of luck and a keeper of stories. For now, the evening is smooth and the formation shows the shape of years. Younger adults turn the wheel, calves ride the soft lanes. The elder keeps the center clear and the choices quiet. The sea, for once, agrees. Tomorrow waits with ordinary work and small decisions, the kind that, added together, become survival. When loss arrives, it does not shout. It slows the water. One morning, a small body does not rise on time. The family's motion changes by degrees. Breaths stretch. Lanes narrow. The circle tightens without a word. An adult lifts the calf gently along her rostrum and holds it near the surface. Another swims beside, steadying the weight the water will not carry. There is no hurry. There is only staying. Hours pass in simple patterns. The family alternates between holding close and making short, quiet loops. Voices soften and lengthen. Calls that usually mean ready now mean here. Neighbors keep distance without leaving. Related pots pass wider than usual and let the water speak for them. We will return to why these pauses matter for memory as much as for bodies. Sometimes the carrying lasts for a day, sometimes it lasts longer. The weight changes and so does the role. One whale holds for a while, then another. Food is offered to the living. The dead is kept out of the feeding lines. There is no ceremony that humans would recognize. There is repetition, care, and the refusal to rush. Young whales learn by the shape of the group what grief looks like at sea. They see that discipline does not vanish in sadness. It softens and spreads. The line still forms when fish gather, but the strikes are measured and the passes few. Enough to keep moving, enough to keep watch. We will come back to how a pod protects the map, even when it is busy with pain. By dusk, the water decides what the family cannot. The body slides away on a tide, or sinks when breath leaves it for the last time. A circle holds for a few more minutes and then opens. Travel resumes at a pace that is more patient than before. No one speaks of closure. There is only the work that grief does not erase. Keep the young safe. Keep the elders fed. Keep the route intact. In the next days, the family revisits familiar places as if checking the pieces of itself. A kelp bed where calves practice turns. A lee behind a point where echoes carry softly. The grandmother slows near each and lets the group read the water longer than usual. The pauses say we remember. The movement says we continue. stories we opened at the start have mostly answered now. We named the favorite fish and felt how elders save winters. One promise remains on the horizon, and we will meet it soon. Far from these coasts, a few orcas learned to pry at boat rudders, turning metal into a lever as if it were a toy. Why touch a ship at all? How does a game become a habit? Is it practice, defense, learning past like any other skill? We will offer the quiet context after this passage, and we will keep our lane clear of drama while we do it. For now, the sea is plain again, and the formation is modest. The family eats enough, sleeps in turns, and makes room for small play without losing the line. Loss does not end culture, it tests it. What remains after testing is the part that holds. Tomorrow, we will take a gentle detour to the open question about rudders, then return to this coast and continue the life we began with a calf in Echelon, moving beside its mother through the long, learning water. Near midday, a pale wake threads the horizon, steady and without breath. Metal has a different voice in water. Our pod narrows formation, not from fear, just attention. They pass far astern of a slow sailboat. The young male watches its tail water turn and turn, and somewhere inside that watching, a quiet memory of other whales rises. Not here, but far away. A small group learned a strange habit with boats. In waters around the Strait of Gibraltar and the coasts of Portugal, Spain, and Morocco, researchers have recorded hundreds of encounters since 2020, where a few orcas approached from the stern and pushed or bit at rudders, often disabling steering, and, on rare days, sinking a yacht. Most interactions involve medium sailboats. People have been rescued when boats were lost, and injuries to crews have been uncommon. Scientists think the behavior spreads socially within that local group. Some call it play or curiosity. Others a response shaped by past bad experiences. But it is not a rule for orcas everywhere. Maritime advisories there suggest skippers slow or stop when safe, avoid sudden course changes, and transit in routes that lessen chance meetings. Incident numbers have shifted with season and with how closely guidance is followed. One report noted a drop in aggressive interactions after boaters favored shallow lanes and simple transits. Our family keeps to its own map. They slip behind a point where echoes carry. Let the hum fade into distance and reform the wheel for a small, tidy hunt. The young male returns to position beside the elder. Attention flows back to fish, to weather, to the old work that keeps a pod steady. What belongs to that far coast stays there. A local culture among whales, learned and passed like any other skill. What belongs here is the quiet precision we've followed since the calf's first days in Echelon. The wake on the horizon thins to nothing. The line breathes. The sea becomes only sea again. The sea softens, and an old question returns to meet its answer. Weeks ago, we wondered whether newborn orcas sleep at all. What looks like sleeplessness is really a different design. In the first weeks, calves ride constant motion, escorted so one half of the brain can rest in splinters while the other keeps breathing on purpose. There is no deep stillness yet, only braids of half sleep. As bodies strengthen and timing settles, those braids lengthen. The family's geometry becomes a cradle, elders on the edges, the young inside, and rest arriving in longer, safer pieces. The mystery closes here, not with silence, but with a pattern that lets sleep exist in moving water. A second question waits at the horizon, the ceremony we only hinted at. It arrives on a windless afternoon when two related pods appear as faint lines of white breath. The spacing is measured long before voices grow. Our family eases into parallel, then crosses at a slow angle. 3 passes, each a little closer, each with paired exhalations that rise and fall together. Calls spool out and return like ropes thrown and neatly coiled. There is no mixing beyond the choreography. Families remain themselves. But the exchange is precise enough to count. Pass, breathe, answer. Pass, breathe, answer. Pass, breathe, release. Dialect is not only sound, it is timing, spacing, and the decision to end on calm. This loop closes with a shape you can almost see. After the meeting, the sea spreads into a long, bright lane. Travel becomes simple, like reading a line you know by heart. Aunties take the harder water when the surface roughens, then trade it back when the young can benefit from practice. Quiet fairness holds the center. No one says generous, they just are. By late light, a brief hunt sets and finishes with neat economy. The young male, now practiced, threads the middle without loosening the wall. An older female glances his way and does nothing more. Approval here is the absence of correction. Evening drops softly and the shelf lifts sound back to the group. The grandmother's scar moves under a thin skin of silver water. Her turns are smaller now, her timing sharper. Maps pass in motion, a slow tilt at a rock that always changes the tide. A brief pause where colder water gathers fat fish, a bend that looks long and saves the body. The lesson is the same in every season. Endurance is made of many correct seconds. Before the dark closes, one last small loop opens and folds. We have spoken of accents and meetings. What about learning new notes? During calm travel, a young female tests a slight lift in pitch at the end of a contact call. It fits, so it stays. Nothing grand happens. No announcement, no chorus. Just a tiny bend that will be ordinary 5 summers from now. Culture grows this way. Additions so small you don't notice until you do. And now, a gentle promise set just ahead. Along these coasts, people have watched and listened long enough to turn orcas into meaning. Guardian, guide, traveler between worlds. Stories are carried in cedar and carved into doors that face the sea. Songs travel with canoes and speak of protection and return. We will come to these meanings soon, not to explain the whales through us, but to notice how our patterns match theirs. Memory shared, care arranged in circles, strength guided by restraint. For tonight, the lane is clear and the line breathes easily. Sleep returns in longer strands, the map holds, and the water remembers where to put the quiet. Tomorrow, the route will widen toward stories on land, and the sea will listen while we tell them. Seasons slip forward, and the calf we met at the start is no longer small. She travels as a young female now, broad through the middle, steady in tempo, confident in lanes where echoes used to blur. The map she carries is no longer borrowed. It lives in her timing. On windy mornings, she takes an outside edge for a while, then rotates in without being asked. When she threads the center of a hunt, the wall stays smooth behind her. Approval here is simple. No one has to fix her wake. The pod is a braid of rolls, and she begins to hold the quiet ones that shape a day. A slight head tilt before a point tells the group the water is cooler on the lee. A 1-second pause at a kelp fringe lets calves settle before a turn. None of it looks like leadership if you watch from far away. Up close, it holds the whole. Courtship returns with the season, familiar but different. Displays near the surface stay measured. Roll, glide, a narrow ribbon of bubbles laid clean and left alone. Our young female keeps distance and reads control instead of size. When a male holds a lane beside her without pushing the water rough, without crowding, without stealing attention from the wheel, she answers by matching pace for a few breaths and then easing away. There is no chase, only choices. Life keeps its balance with work. Hunts continue between signs, small circles set tight the first time, light passes that feed without burning the line. When storms loom, courtship pauses like a held breath, and the pod becomes a traveling triangle again. She covers the windward side for a stretch, then yields it to an aunt and moves inboard to keep the timing clean. Practice, not drama, is how a body grows into the center. On a clear day after the weather breaks, two families pass in a slow exchange we have seen once before. 3 measured crossings, breaths paired, calls that spool and return tidy. This time, our young female's voice threads the pattern without wobble. Dialect is not only what you say, it is how calmly you end the sentence. The ceremony closes and the sea opens into distance. Weeks lengthen and a choice arrives as quiet as a nod. She paces a male at the edge of the formation, belly to belly, for a brief moment below the surface. Then both slide apart and return to their lanes. Nothing changes, and everything does. We will not hurry the result. In Orca time, carrying a calf takes many months, often more than a human year. The ocean makes room by asking for patience first and proof later. Travel turns practical again. She eats well without using speed as a habit, saves strength when the map demands reach, and lets elders shave corners from the day with one small angle at a time. Once, long ago, she matched her mother's breath because she had to. Now others match hers because it helps. A circle that once held her for safety now holds because she can keep it steady. Before night, a soft loop opens and waits. If this season has started a new life inside her, what will change and what will not? How does a pod bend around a body that will need steadier water and longer rests? We will answer in time, when small signals, longer exhalations, gentler turns, pauses weighted like decisions, quietly say yes. For now, the lane is even, the work is clean, and the map she carries is ready to grow by one more heart. Carrying a calf is a season of small, careful changes. Her breath lingers a little longer at the surface, turns smooth out, sprints get shorter. Hunts still happen, but the wheel sets tighter the first time, and the passes are measured. She favors inside lanes where the water is steadier, then trades with an aunt when practice is safe. Nothing is announced, The formation does the talking. Food shifts towards strength that lasts. Adults share oily cuts more often and save long chases for others. She eats early in a hunt and rests early, then re-enters the circle for calm work, holding the wall, closing a seam, guiding calves away from the fast water at the edge. We will return to how sharing changes when a new mouth is coming and why the group eats better when care is planned, not improvised. Travel order bends around her. 2 steady bodies bracket her on rough days. When wind rises, the grandmother shaves a corner or lengthens a lane so the ride quiets without losing distance. If a squall stacks the swell, the pod becomes a triangle, and she moves a half body inboard. She keeps her map, but the group carries a part of it for her. Sound becomes a comfort and a tool. She uses shorter click trains, longer waits, building clear pictures without spending too much breath. At night, when sleep comes in braids, she drifts between 2 relatives who trade the windward lane without being asked. Discipline turns into softness here. Rules that once kept order now keep peace. We will not say the word before the water does. Still, small signals keep gathering. Her surfacing grows slower, her exhale heavier, her pauses weighted like decisions. On calm mornings, she rests a beat longer in the lee and lets others thread the center. The pod reads these cues the way we read the color of weather. Soon becomes a shape, not a sound. A quiet greeting ceremony happens once. Brief, respectful, like a promise held with both hands. 2 related pods pass near. Spacing widens to give room. Our young female stays centered. A cousin handles the show. She handles the map. When the lines unwind, everyone is where they should be, and the sea lies back down. Close to dusk, she practices a role that will matter later, holding the soft lane while calves play. Aunties float as a moving fence. She keeps the interior smooth so the smallest bodies learn without losing position. The work looks like stillness, but it is effort spent quietly and well. Before night, one more question is left floating on our minds. How will the birth look when it comes? Who will hold the slipstream? Who will fetch the first food? How will the family keep speed without shaking the water? We will answer soon, when the sea takes on that bright, focused look it gets just before something new enters it. The water clears as if the day has been saved for this. She travels mid-line with 2 steady bodies just behind. Breaths rise in a slow, even rhythm. Around her, the formation opens a soft pocket of space and keeps it moving so the sea flows clean. The first sign is not a sound, but a stillness. Then a small tail appears, pale and new, and slides back in. Moments later, it returns, tail first, as orca calves often come, and the body follows in one long, living line. The water folds around a new weight. Aunties move like hands that already know the work. One holds the slipstream steady so the calf can rise without struggle. Another guides from below, nudging the small body toward air. The grandmother keeps the lane smooth and the pace exact, not slow, not fast, just right for lungs that are about to learn. The first breath is quiet, a small lift, a thin plume, the sea's version of a whisper. Color deepens with each pass. White patches blush and then clear. Echelon forms as if the ocean itself remembered the lesson. Calf, tight to the mother's side, wrapped in a moving blanket of warmth and speed. There is no celebration in the human sense. There is work, soft and constant. Milk lets down. The calf nuzzles and learns the shape of breathing again and again. The family makes a slow loop that keeps water clean and noise low. Calls are simple and close. Here, here, here. By afternoon, the calf holds its line for longer stretches, short dives, fast rises. A cousin carries a ribbon of kelp for a moment, then lets it go. A small game that marks the day without pulling attention from care. The pod's geometry becomes a cradle, elders on the edges, young ones just outside, mother and calf in the safest lane. As evening arrives, the new life glows in the green light below the surface. Our young female is no longer only a student or a worker in the line. She is a center. Others shape around her without ceremony, and the route resumes with more caution and more confidence, both at once. One last soft promise bends ahead. The circle that held her as a calf will one day hold her child's child. Memory will flow through timing and lanes, not speeches. Strength will pass by example, not display. We will follow that longer arc as we near the shore of our telling. And before we finish, we will listen to the people of this coast who have carried these meanings in cedar and song for generations. Years stack like quiet waves, and the mother we followed grows into a grandmother. Her calf becomes steady, then strong, then a teacher. Seasons turn again, and a new young one rises at her side, her grandchild pressed into the soft lane she once learned in. The circle is visible now. She fed, then guided. Now she guides what will feed others. Age changes her in measured steps. Reproductive years close in her 40s, sometimes earlier, while strength remains. This is the long season of memory, post-reproductive life that can span decades. Wild female orcas often reach their 40s and 50s, and some live much longer, into their 80s or beyond. Males, on average, live fewer years. Many fall in their 30s, though some reach their 40s or 50s. Numbers vary by region and fortune, but the pattern is clear. Grandmothers last, and their years matter. Her role deepens as her speed fades. She trims lanes, saves sprints, and makes choices that keep small bodies in easy water. In lean salmon years, her timing shortens searches and raises survival for calves that are not her own. When the sea crowds with weather, she centers the pod and lets younger whales take the wind while she steers by pause and angle. Leadership becomes lighter, not louder. Small signs of age appear and pass. A stiffer rise, a shallower dive, longer breaths at the surface. She rests from the hardest edges more often, yet her calls keep the map aligned. On days when the run is late, the pod still bends toward her tilt of head, her taste of colder water, her habit of choosing the lane that looks longer and lands stronger. One spring, a granddaughter learns to hold the wall through an entire hunt. The grandmother does not display. She simply does not correct. Approval remains what it has always been in this family: the absence of repair. Then, in a later season, a different slowing comes. Not the gentle pacing of elder years, but a tiredness that does not lift after rest. The pod notices before the sea does. Spacing narrows, travel lines shorten. Two steady bodies flank her without being asked. She keeps to midline, where timing counts more than reach, and for a while, that is enough. On a calm evening, near a lee that has served the family for years, she falls slightly behind the breath pattern. There is no panic, only order. The pod makes a slow circle that keeps the water flat and the noise low. An adult takes the windward side. Another steadies from below. If she lifts, they travel. If she lingers, they wait. Through the night, calls are simple and close. Here, here, here. At dawn, she rises once more with the group, breathes, and settles in the smooth lane they have kept for her. When the moment comes, it is quiet. The family holds formation until the water decides, until she drifts into the depth or rides the tide away. They do not rush the leaving. They travel a small loop together, past the point she taught them, and then open the line and continue. Grief lives alongside movement here. In the days that follow, the pod revisits the seam she favored after storms, the rock where kelp flags the current, the bend that turns shortage into enough. A young female repeats the tiny head tilt the elder used to make. A grandson takes the windward lane and keeps it clean. Memory has a job. It is already working. The granddaughter, once the calf we met as a breath against her mother, now carries her own young in the soft lane. When the family travels, she trims corners the way the elder did. When a hunt sets, she leaves attention for others and holds the wall. Without ceremony, the role passes on. Mother to leader, leader to grandmother, grandmother to story that stays useful. Before we turn to the people of this coast and the meanings they have carried, we set one last small promise just ahead. The map continues in bodies and in memory. On land, stories do the same. In a moment, we will stand at the shoreline of both and listen to how they rhyme. Guardian, guide, and family that remembers its way home. If this helped you rest, please like and subscribe and let us know where you're listening from. A city, a coast, or the kind of water you love. Your comment helps this quiet series find the people who need it. Along the northwest coast, many nations speak of the Orca in ways that echo the life we've followed tonight. The names differ, the art forms and languages are distinct, yet the meanings rhyme. Guardian, guide, family, return. Among the Haida, Blackfish appears on house posts and crest designs. Families carry it as a mark of strength that protects the home and remembers the sea. Stories tell of Blackfish guiding canoes through hard water and bringing people safely back to shore. A crest is not just decoration, it is a map of belonging. The Tlingit tell of Orcas as ocean chiefs who keep order beneath the waves. A boat in trouble might be helped by Blackfish if respect has been shown. Care for the catch, gratitude for food, and steady conduct on the water. These are ties between living beings, not rules written on paper. Tsimshian carvers lift Blackfish high on poles where sky and sea seem to meet. There it stands for leadership that serves, not leadership that shouts. Power used to keep balance, not to break it. In songs and dances, That balance is rehearsed the way a pod rehearses the turn of a hunt. Among the Kwakwakawak, often rendered historically as Kwakiutl, the sea wolf is another way to see the orca, a hunter whose family bonds are unbroken. Old stories speak of people who lived beneath the water for a time, learning how loyalty, food, and home fit together, then returned with that knowledge to guide their own families. In Coast Salish territories, orcas are remembered as helpers who cross boundaries, sea to river, storm to calm, living to remembered. Blackfish becomes a bridge, a traveler who moves messages where people cannot always go. Canoe families sing of protection on long pulls and of returning home together. Farther south and west, the Nuchanuth honor the strength and unity of the killer whale in weaving and song. Blackfish appears alongside salmon to show that lives are linked. No salmon, no people, no people, no stories to carry the respect due to the sea. These teachings are not identical. Each nation keeps its own laws and ways, but certain patterns keep returning, like breath, order without noise, patience as a tool, knowledge passed in motion. When you stand before a carved doorway that faces the ocean and see blackfish crossing the threshold, you are looking at a promise. What lives out there is part of what lives in here. Our pod's long journey mirrors those promises. Guard the young without fanfare. Share food by rule, not mood. Spend strength where it pays back. Keep the circle whole. The grandmother's map is a kind of crest. The daily lane is a kind of song. The hunt wheel is choreography, and the quiet reset after mistakes is ceremony, practical, repeated, and full of care. If you've seen formline art, bold ovoids and flowing shapes, you may have noticed how blackfish is drawn with a gentle curve, as if always in motion. That curve is a lesson. Don't fight the water. Read it. In bentwood boxes, on paddles and drums, and in woven blankets, the orca travels across cedar and wool the way it travels across the sea, linking families, marking histories, keeping memory useful. Some stories tell of transformations. A person becomes blackfish, or blackfish becomes a person, to teach what needs teaching. Others begin with gifts, luck in the hunt, safe travel through fog, a timely return. Whether a tale leans toward law or kindness, the message tends to land the same way. Strength guided by restraint is the strength that lasts. On quiet nights like this, you can feel how those meanings sit beside the water. Our family moves along the shelf. A longhouse door faces the waves. The breath of whales rises. The breath of cedar smoke lifts. Someone finishes a carving. Someone else keeps the travel line straight. Culture on land and culture in water answer each other across the tide line. Before we close, an invitation. If these stories comforted you, share a line in the comments. Your river or bay, a word you use for the sea, a memory of watching blackfish or seeing a carving that stayed with you. Your note becomes part of the circle that carries knowledge forward, quietly and together. Now the lane is clear, the line breathes, and the night holds. The pod travels on with room to rest and room to learn. On shore, the carved doorway keeps its promise. Between them, the map remains, guardian, guide, and family that remembers the way home.